Should an MC back here for Umineko when they cry? Let's continue. The Ushiromiya Family Conference was held once every year on the first weekend of October. The normal family were to hold a so-called family conference. You'd expect it to be nothing more than a reunion of rarely seen relatives who greet each other around buckets of sushi or something. Pretty accurate. However, part of the family great fortune had been lent out to grandfather's children. And no one in this family was considered an adult until they had met with success in business. That's interesting. So this meeting literally was a conference. How much of the fortune was invested? What sort of business was conducted? How much profit was earned? As a result, how much of the fortune borrowed from the main family could be repaid? Or possibly, how much more would be borrowed for future business ventures? What lessons had they learned, and what could they learn from their mistakes? It seems that topics like these were discussed very seriously in the past. My dad said it was like lying on a bed of nails. Apparently, it used to be a very serious family meeting, where people were bathed in scornful and angry voices, and some people even got slapped despite their age. However, that had become a thing of the past. Now, with everyone pursuing their own business ventures and achieving success, it was becoming more of a normal yearly get-together. Even so, telling grandfather about recent events was extremely stressful, so while it was nothing more than a simple get-together for us grandchildren, it was still a real stomachache for our parents. The absence of the man, who was the source of all this trouble, regardless of the reason, probably made today's lunch taste more delicious. The phrase, "while the demon is not around, everyone can relax," comes to mind. Toxic family situation. It's sad that there's an idiom for that. Anyway, let's introduce Jessica's father, whose face I haven't seen for 6 years. This is the least Japanese looking of all of them, I have to say. The man sitting to my father's left is his older brother and Jessica's father, Uncle... This name sure is easy to read. Krause. Now that we've gotten used to this string of weird names, our perspective is totally skewed. So, Krause doesn't actually seem that bad. It even starts to sound kinda cool. Just like with Aunt Natsuhi, I didn't have many memories of speaking with Uncle Krause. He'd never been one to chat to children, and I felt like he was always talking with the adults, just like Aunt Natsuhi. According to my father's gossip, he was a spiteful and violent man. If what he said is true, Uncle Krause used to be very domineering from his position as the oldest sibling, and was despised by all the other siblings. Though despite that, those siblings all seemed to be chatting happily together. Oh well. Even if their relationship was bad when they were children, sometimes when people grow up and live apart from each other, their relationships change. That's probably what this was. After all, they all had children about the same age. By sharing the family environment, they probably profited from exchanging opinions. Everything sounds so transactional, this family. Very toxic. Maybe because of that, a short while ago, the circle of parents began to discuss the exams Jessica and I would be taking. Jessica, in order to escape questions about exams from my father and on her left, purposefully faced right while firing off rapid series of comments, not giving him any chance to get a word in. That's not gonna work forever, girl. Moving on, let's look at the end of the opposite from Krause and the others. In the very last seat at the table, an old gentleman with a sturdy physique sat facing Kyrie-san. This was my first time meeting him. I'd only just been introduced to him, but it seems he's grandfather's personal doctor, a man called Nanjo. I heard he used to own a huge clinic on the nearby island of Dijima, but he turned it over to his son and began living a life of leisure in his old age. Interesting. He had no grandfather since the very beginning, when the mansion was first constructed on this island, and had built up a relationship over several decades. I thought at first that the two of them might have gotten to know each other through grandfather's suspicious hobbies, but it seems like he was actually grandfather's chess partner. I see. That kind of hobby seems very like our grandfather, what with his love of all things Western. Nanjo's probably the only person who could enter Rokenjima, despite being neither a family member nor a servant. He looked like a calm-old gentleman as he listened to the discussion between Kyrie and the other women who sat near to him. Considering how long he stayed by the side of our short-tempered grandfather, his generous heart was probably nothing to laugh at. Still, even if he was a family doctor, having anyone outside the Ushiromiya family attend the family conference was a little odd. Made me think that grandfather's condition might have worsened so much it'd been a major topic of discussion at today's conference. After all, George said something like that just a second ago. Something about how we've been getting continuous reports since around last year that grandfather didn't have long to live. It's nasty to think about it, but consider how rich grandfather is. At the time of his death, his wealth will suddenly be released, probably along with a fair share of our parents' stomach acid. And it'll lead to ulcers for everyone. After all, this sort of thing just gets messier when there's more wealth to be divided. There's a good chance that they'll be talking about this stuff like that at family conference. Still, it's not like it's got anything to do with those kids. Oh my gosh, I've never read this long before. Finally, even though he hasn't shown up, let me introduce our grandfather. Bro's just doing all the narration at once. Alright, hold up. The person who should be sitting in that incipient chair is known as Ushiromiya Kinzo. It really sucks. Everyone else in the family has these weird names, but he's got this perfectly normal one himself. If only his name were written Kinzo, but he let us call him Goldsmith or something, I'd totally freak out. As you can probably guess by now, he's a frightening person with an extremely short temper. I'm one of his grandchildren, not a son, and I haven't seen him since elementary school. Thanks to that, I have no memory of being beaten myself, but our parents were apparently raised with an iron fist. That earlier conversation between my dad and Uncle Kraus about who should convince grandfather to come down seems pretty darn funny once you know their background. Pretty morbid sense of funny, but okay. You can't really tell grandfather's story without covering that pivotal event before the Showa era, 1926 to 89. Until the Meiji era and the Taisho era, the Ushiromiya family was great and prosperous. Okay, here we go. Finally getting some background here. They owned several spinning mills, making them rich enough to just double over laughing every day as the money kept rolling in. Incidentally, grandfather was a member of a branch family and pretty much nothing to do with the main family. Not only was he way down from the list of people who could inherit the headship, but he hardly had any contact with the glamorous main family. However, during the Great Kanto earthquake in the year Taisho 12, 1923, the mansion owned by the Ushiromiya family in Odawara was flattened. It's interesting that they're using real history here. The spinning mills in Tokyo were all burned down in a huge fire, and the Ushiromiya family lost most of its wealth and family members in an instant. So, once I started trying to figure out who should be the successor the Ushiromiya family should be, they apparently found no one remaining except Kinzo and his branch family. That's super suspicious! In Kinzo's later reminiscences, he referred to this as good fortune so great that it overturned fate. I wonder if he casted a spell when the earthquake hit. With that, grandfather's boring, everyday life did a 180. He was entrusted with reviving the dying Ushiromiya family, which had lost nearly all of its wealth. However, just because he had been entrusted with this task didn't mean he could accomplish it. Apparently, those around him weren't really expecting much. However, this is when Grandfather began displaying his extraordinary talent and good luck. Grandfather used all of the family's remaining wealth, as well as everything from the hair on his head to toenails, as collateral in order to borrow a massive amount of money. Once he built up a gigantic war chest, he immediately invested in businesses. It's like someone tumbling down a hill on a bike without any brakes, and then jumping onto a neighboring bike, and then another one. Just like some crazy street performance. I'll bet everyone thought Grandfather had no business ability whatsoever. However, after several miracles and turns of good luck, with coincidences piling up at every chance taken advantage of, he was suddenly in control of powerful connections with the occupying forces. At the time, MacArthur and the GHQ were the ultimate authority in Japan. Grandfather, in the twinkle of an eye, began succeeding in business under the protection of the occupying forces, quickly becoming very rich. So, I mean, even though it says he did it quickly, that must have been over the course of about 20-30 years. By this point, it's probably safe to say that information, not luck, saved the day. He must have made some seriously deep connections with the occupying forces. Grandfather knew beforehand about emergency demands that would be made for the Korean War. No, it was more than that. He must have predicted those emergency demands from the very beginning, when he started investing his money. The history books make it sound like all of Japan made a large profit off the emergency demands during the Korean War, but that actually isn't true. Only a very limited number of super rich played the money game and made an easy profit. Yeah, kind of globalistic tycoon types. Most of the citizens remained poor. Yeah, actually until the 70s. Japan was insanely poor after World War II. In other words, Grandfather was a member of an extremely lucky group of winners. I'm pretty sure all this happened during the year Showa 25, 1950 or so. The Great Kanto earthquake happened in Taisho 13, 1924, so that means Grandfather was able to revive the near-dead Ushiromiya family in only about 20 years to a level higher than it had ever been before. With that, you'd think he revived the main family in Odawara, but for some reason, he went and did something as crazy as buying an entire small island in the Izu archipelago. Buying an entire island is not something that you can ordinarily do today. In Japan, that is. There's other places you can buy them. However, Grandfather was clever. He contacted the GHQ and applied for the establishment of a marine resource base. He acquired this island as a business property, then tossed that project aside and claimed it as his own plot of land. Okay, so that was a bit finagling. After the war, there was prevention measures against food shortages, and having the sponsorship of GHQ meant that nobody could oppose him. From what I've heard, the Tokyo metropolis of that day offered this land to him practically for free. Later, Tokyo made difficulties by telling Kinzo to return the land, but the pushy GHQ intervened. Global headquarters is what that stands for. Anyway, it seems under-the-table bribes did their work well. Dang, I'm surprised how much he knows about this stuff. In the end, the city gave up in frustration. Grandfather, with considerable skill and good luck, managed to weather the stormy seas of that period, obtaining a vast fortune in his own island. Of course, probably wasn't all luck. He was obsessed with all things Western, which helped him cultivate his English skills. He's able to use this to his advantage and sink his teeth into the GHQ. A mansion was built on the island soon after. This mansion, in fact. Grandfather, with his love of Western style, made this one uninhabited island a canvas upon which he could realize his dreams to his heart's content. He now had the Western mansion of his dreams, overflowing with emotion and atmosphere, and a beautiful garden featuring all sorts of roses. And He had a private beach where nobody other than himself would ever be permitted to leave a footprint. This would be a dream come true for any boy. After that, he made good use of his huge fortune, becoming a large stockholder in the extremely stable iron and steel industry, and was able to live an easy and comfortable life, just using the dividends. Well, he's just that incredible. This kind of person usually has the ability to foresee and predict the future, or at least that is how they're portrayed after the fact. But grandfather denies all of that, repeatedly saying he was simply blessed with extraordinary luck. Anyway, even a lord like that can't help but grow increasingly eccentric when locked up alone on an island, where all his dreams are made real. Everyone knows that he's had a Western inception from the start, but none of our parents really know when his bizarre black magic hobby began. Did his love of black magic begin way back, when he became fascinated with everything Western? Or did his miraculous stench of good luck, while reviving his family, cause him to feel a mysterious power in himself? At some point, grandfather began to make the research of black magic his life's work. He filled the study up with suspicious books, chemicals, and magical items, as it became increasingly bizarre. From what I've heard, those around him warmly watched over him, figuring that someone who had achieved successes in life had a right to do as he pleased, but there's no way that's true. They were probably just creeped out, thinking, that's disgusting, I don't want to get involved. Anyway, that agitated period was an age of big gambles, with both opportunities and risks. Let's say grandfather was born in this time period. He would have had no opportunities and would have probably have advanced like a chess piece from mandatory education to college at a leisurely pace, never becoming more than an average salaryman. If that happened, he probably had sat somewhere, happily talking behind his boss's back. No, not in a fancy dining hall like this, more like a table in some bar. But again, I bet this family conference would be a whole lot more relaxing if that were the case. Okay, that's enough about the old geezer. More importantly, let's talk about this incredible lunch.
前菜の刺身のサラダで俺はすでに確信してたね。幸田さんは大したシェフだぜ。しかも魚は近海で取れたやつだろ。スーパーの刺身とはわけが違ったぜ。おいおいよせよバトラー。育ちがバレちまうだろうが。
Everyone let out a big laugh. Damn it. You say that even though you love those cheap pubs.
僕も仕事の都合で珍しいところで食事をすることもあるけど、それらと比べてもこれはかなりのものだよ。
Makes sense.
合田さんは多分その道じゃ少しは知られた人だったんじゃないかな。
よくは知らねえんだけどよ。老舗ホテルでのれん分けだか派閥の分裂だかややこしいことがあってよ。そのトラブルで辞めざるを得なくなっちまったんだってさ。それでその時、偶然おふくろが使用人の求人を出してたわけなんだよ。
As Goda removed the empty plates, he began to recount his own bumpy past without losing his smile.
世の中というのは難しいものです。しかし、そのおかげでこうして今日、後宮家で再び料理人として腕を振るう機会を賜ることができました。大勢の方の笑顔も嬉しいですが、お仕えすると決めた限られた方々にだけ喜んでいただくために繊細なお仕事ができるのもとても楽しいことでございます。これもすべて機会をくださった奥様のおかげです。
Goda-san respectively bowed his head towards the Aunt Natsume.
応募のあった中で合田が一番腕が良かったからです。客観的判断に基づくもので市場はありませんので、感謝には及びません。
Dang. Why does Aunt Natsume always have to sound so indifferent? If she only spoke with a bit more kindness, she might leave a different impression. True. Shannon-chan and Kumasawa-san entered from the hallway with a serving cart.
失礼いたします。
それでは 本日のデザートに移らせていただきます。
Goda-san and the others laid a beautifully adorned dessert in front of us all. I guess it's true when they say you have an average stomach for dessert. Yeah, it's really kind of strange how that is, huh? I thought I'd already filled up on a delicious food, but as soon as I laid my eyes on that dessert, my stomach started yelling, "More!" I don't know much about desserts, but this looked really good. A white pudding-like substance was garnished with 2 shades of red sauce, and elegant rose petals adorned the dish. Normally, during a high-class meal like this, you're supposed to wait for the chef to extol the virtues of this particular meal before eating. However, Maria was completely indifferent to strict rules like that, so she got excited by this beautiful and delicious-looking dessert, jumping into the fray as soon as it was placed before her. Aunt Rosa scolded her, calling it bad manners, but George responded by saying, No, it's okay.
こっちの酸っぱい。こっちの酸っぱい。バトラ、こっちのは外れ。
She doesn't seem to hate it that much. Maria exclaimed as she sampled the 2 colored sauces.
なんだと？当たりと外れがあるのかよ。よし、俺も味見をしてやるぜ。
Apparently, one sauce was sweet and the other sour. Despite it being bad manners, I also stuck my little finger in and licked it. Whoa. One of the sauces was sour enough to make you pucker up. If it were yellow, I'd suspected lemon, but I couldn't guess what kind of sourness would be red. I decided to ask Shannon, who was putting away the serving cart behind us.
シャノンちゃん、この酸っぱいのは何のソースだい？
How does she not know anything, bro? I thought she'd been working here for 2 years, dude. Shannon-chan hesitated. Maybe her job was just to set the table, so she didn't really know. Still, even considering that, she seemed pretty stressed. I wonder if she's not even allowed to go around it. Maybe I shouldn't have asked. Or, did they use some ingredient that we'd be better off not knowing about? While Aunt Natsuhi made a gesture that seemed to indicate an oncoming headache, Kumasawa-san, who was setting the table at the opposite seat, began to chuckle.
何の材料を使っていると思いますか？驚きますよ。
I swear, she's like always saving every social situation they're in.
全然わかんねえぜ。というか、熊沢のばあさんがそういう笑い方すると不気味でならねえ
It is,
ぜ。
I'm not gonna lie.
で、何なんだよ、正体は。
内緒ですよ。お耳を拝借。
Kumasawa-san leaned from across the table. I leaned forward myself when she had asked. Their interest caught. Jessica, George Aniki, and of course Maria also put their ears closer.
この酸っぱいのはですね。
If she says human blood.
実はお魚のサバの絞り汁です
No
よ。
way. Gross.
サバ？
That's crazy, we all thought, horrified. Only Maria accepted it, nodding sagely.
ほー、サバは酸っぱいよ。絞ったらこうなる。
When Maria started clamoring that mackerel were sour, the adults were unable to contain their laughter.
違うわよ。酸っぱいのはしめ鯖でしょ。
Only Aunt Rosa, her face red, whispered to Maria that mackerel is sour only once prepared as shime saba. Ah, now I totally remember. Kumasawa-san was always like this, wasn't she? I think I remember her tricking me too in all sorts of ways when I was young. The most lethal has gotta be that one. Those flimsy black things in Chinese dishes. They're kikurage mushrooms. She told me that they were penguin meat, and I went all around school like a smartass telling everyone, didn't I?
熊沢のばあちゃん、相変わらずだな。マリアが信じちゃうだろ？
Nice to have a little bit of wholesomeness in this really messed up family.
冗談ですよ。 今からゴーダさんがソースの正体を教えてくれま
They're
すか
gonna
ら
have to
ね。
kill this old lady first, because she's the only one who keeps saving the social dynamic over and over, and releasing the tension that's tightly wound up. Goda looked a little put off about his masterpiece being laughed at for such a bizarre reason. But after clearing his throat once, he introduced the dessert to us.
それではデザートのご説明をさせていただきます。本日はご来賓の皆様が大層お気に入りでございましたバラの庭園にちなみまして、パンナコッタをローズガーデン風に仕上げてみました。散らしてございますバラの花びらは当家の庭園より先ほど採取してきたものでございま
A
す。
totally mundane, oh, this is what is for dessert. I don't know, it just makes everything feel a little off.
ソースはストロベリーとローズヒップの2色の赤をご用意しました。ストロベリーの甘味とローズヒップの酸味を交互にお楽しみになってください。なお花びらは観賞用となっておりますので、避けてからお召し上がりくださいませ。それではどうぞお楽しみください。
Whoa. Man, I almost want to applaud before eating. Just like with medicine, reading the detailed description first seems to make it work a whole lot better. As Goda-san elaborated on the details of this dessert, it started to feel even more appetizing. Seriously, should you call him subtle or just talented? The dessert was probably planned from the beginning, but taking the hint when we all stopped in front of the rose garden earlier today, he displayed an incredible and timely awareness by just adding a few rose petals from that garden. This combination of sweet and sour was also exquisite. If it was just sweet, you'd just get used to it and bored halfway through. But if you reached the sour sauce at that point, you'd really get a vivid taste. And then, once you return to the sweet sauce, all the sourness in your mouth would be replaced with an enjoyable sweetness. I'm sure everyone else felt the same way. Every time Goda-san passed one of our seats, someone praised the taste in his presentation.
いかがですか、奥様。
相変わらず見事です。お客様をおもてなしするに値します。
恐れ入ります。奥様、ご存知ですか？ローズヒップには頭痛に効く効果もあるそうですよ。奥様に特にお気に入りいただけるかと思い、特別にご用意させていただきました。
そう。ありがとう。
ほら言ったでしょ、夏日姉さん。ローズヒップは頭痛に効くって。
みたいね。聞くといいんだけど。
She's so negative, I hate her.
ゴーダさん、あんたには惚れるで。なあ、後であんたの待遇を聞かせてや。
Man, he's gonna browse his way to the top at this rate.
無理ならあんたの欲しい年収、指立ててくれるだけでもええんやで。あんたの腕がこの島だけで独占されとるのは人類の食文化に対する冒涜や。その腕、わしの会社で振るってお客の皆さんを喜ばせてみる気はないかのう。
秀吉さん、うちのゴーダを引き抜かれるのですか？これは困った。ゴーダの待遇をもっと良くしないと引き抜かれてしまいそうだ。
そうした方がいいわね。じゃないと引き抜かれて3食が熊沢さんのサバ料理にされちゃうわよ。
これは手厳しゅうございます。すっかり根に持たれてしまいまして。
Indeed. I think I like the old lady the best of all these characters, I'm not gonna lie. I like Badler a lot, but I feel like we're just getting to know him, you know? Everyone let out a huge laugh. According to Jessica, Kumasawa-san's mackerel jokes were a running gag that our parents had long since gotten used to. Kumasawa-san often claimed that mackerels had precious nutritional value, which could slow aging and make people smarter and more. Supposedly, while it couldn't stop the outward signs of aging, it helped prevent aging on the inside. Since she was still spirited enough to tell these kind of jokes at her age, there must be something to that theory. If she does this evil laughter and it's like a bad thing later, I'm gonna lose it, dude.
それでは失礼いたします。 夕食にはふるってたくさんのサバ料理をお召し上がりいただきますので、どうぞご期待くださいませね。
期待してるよ。今晩はしめ鯖でキュッとしゃれ込みたいぜ。
それは素敵ね。ついでに日本酒の美味しいのも出てこないかしら。
ええ、ございますよ。六軒島名物のサバ焼酎なるものがございまして。
Kumasawa-san, together with Shannon-chan, bowed and pushing the serving cart away. Oh, push the serving cart away. It was pretty funny to watch Goda-san, who looked like his show had totally been stolen, explain in a serious voice that we'd be having calf steak for dinner.
熊沢さん、さっきはありがとうございました。
What is up with this girl and her brother, dude? I feel like it's something really bad. As she pushed the serving cart, Shannon bowed her head very deeply.
なんもお礼を言われることなんてあり
You
ま
are
せ
the
ん。
MVP, what are you talking about? Kumasawa may have played dumb, but she obviously understood and saved Shannon in the nick of time. Back when Badler had asked about dessert, Shannon had unfortunately hesitated. There may have been several ways to dodge the question, but all of them would have required some quick wits. Shannon, who hesitated when hard-pressed for a response, was always suffering because of this small weakness. That's a good point. Everybody in the family here is really quick-witted and kind of like sarcastic and hiding their feelings and getting little jabs here and there. And so that's the only way that they can keep things relatively normal. And Kumasawa-san here is like the most shrewd one who's able to like ease that tension. But Shannon, she's not actually part of the family, so she doesn't actually have that quick-wittedness required to survive here. This is actually really well written in that respect. As goofy as it all is, right? I can understand what's going on here. The fact that she could perform other tasks flawlessly made this weakness even more unfortunate. However, there were some who understood Shannon's honest nature, her inability to gloss over a mistake and draw attention away from it. That was why Kumasawa had smoothly come to her rescue.
さっき源氏さんが午後のシフトに変更があるとおっしゃってましたよ。確かシャノンさんは夕方までお休みがもらえたと思いました。羨ましい。
すみません。シフト表を確認していませんでした。
そうそう。オーブンでこれからちょっとサバを焼こうと思ってるんですよ。できたらお休みの前にちょっと手伝ってくれると嬉しいですね。
はい、喜んでお手伝いさせていただきます。
To Shannon, Kumasawa was like a mother among the servants. Ooh, man, I don't know why, but I get so tense during these scenes. It's just like, they're just having dinner. But because of the dynamic I explained earlier, it's not great. And the thing is we have this occult stuff in the background and curses. I feel like the reason for all this sniping back and forth is only going to get darker and darker as we go forward. So with that, I'm Shonen C, and I'll see y'all in the next episode. I have no idea where this is going.